Welcome back to the deep dive. We are jumping right into a huge stack of sources today, and it's all focused on decoding the enduring appeal of one of Britain's most celebrated and I think sometimes most frustrating writers, Ian McEwan.
Definitely frustrating at times.
And we know exactly where you are right now. You're that devoted fan, and you're in that slightly agonizing position of having read, nearly everything he's written. You've appreciated that the quality varies. Atonement is the critical Everest. But you also found The Children's Act to be just a structurally brilliant and really satisfying read.
A really good read, yeah.
And while you're currently tackling lessons, you've probably noted it demands a different, maybe less immediately driven pace than his earlier work.
No.
But you still return time and again for that signature way with words.
That way with words, that's the key, isn't it? That blend of surgical, almost clinical precision applied to situations of deep moral ambiguity.
Yeah.
That is the McEwan signature. And it creates a very specific reading requirement.
Yeah.
So we have a clear two-part mission in this deep dive. First, we need to solve the fan's dilemma. Who captures that unique literary tone, that moral pressure to read next?
And second.
Second, we are going to unpack the details of his 19th novel, what we can know, and see how it reflects, and maybe even subverts all those defining literary trademarks.
Okay, so our goal is to move beyond just simple comparisons and really identify the specific mechanics that define that McEwan quality so we can find some perfect substitutes.
Exactly. I mean, when you look at his bibliography, McEwan is constantly asking, what would a rational, often educated and, ordinary person do when confronted with an extraordinary, usually terrible, moral question?
That blend of intellect and jeopardy.
That's it. That's the core emotional anchor we're trying to find in the recommended authors.
Okay, so let's unpack this first problem. What authors do fellow readers suggest to fill that precise, intellectually demanding, McEwan-shaped hole? Because stylistically, he is hard to match.
He is incredibly difficult to match. But the suggestions we got from other devoted fans, they really show an understanding of that intersection of precision and global consequence that defines his writing.
So who's first?
The first clear recommendation, one that's often cited alongside McEwan in contemporary critical analysis, is Viet Thanh Nguyen.
Ah, okay.
Specifically, his Booker-winning novel, The Sympathizer.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a complex moral landscape set against a backdrop of sweeping world affairs, in this case the Vietnam War, that is a strong thematic match.
And the connection here isn't just international setting, is it? It's something deeper. It's about the narrative voice.
Precisely. Nguyen's narrator is a communist spy with dual loyalties, and that forces him into the ultimate moral paradox. He has to constantly judge, betray, and justify himself.
So that internal complexity, that constant pressure on his conscience.
It's a direct thematic and structural analog to the internal struggles of McEwan's protagonists, like, Henry Perron in Saturday or Brany in Atonement.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, now let's look at an author who seems stylistically a bit older. Hans Fallada.
Yes, we saw a recommendation for Fallada's Alone in Berlin. Fallada has a big pre-World War II bibliography, but this novel was his final, really powerful work.
And what's the story there?
It captures that intense, high-stakes moral struggle of a couple in Nazi Germany who begin quietly resisting the regime.
And the McEwan connection is the atmosphere.
It's the specific atmosphere of menace. The tension isn't generated by huge set pieces, but by the quiet, meticulous danger in everyday actions. The decision to write and distribute a single postcard, for example.
Right.
McEwan excels at that, whether it's a random encounter on a highway in Enduring Love or a tense standoff in a surgery in Saturday.
So we have the weighty, complex moral landscape covered. Now let's tackle the most jarring set of recommendations. This came directly from a fan who explicitly called McEwan their favorite author. They suggested both A.M. Holmes and Mitch Albom. Hold on, Mitch Albom? That seems like an enormous leap in stylistic register. I mean, you're moving from McEwan's often clinical literary voice to, well, something much more direct and emotionally accessible.
It is a leap, yeah.
If they are so different, what is the single quality that devotee is seeing that connects them?
Well, that is the ultimate test of the McEwan quality, isn't it? If we strip away the prose style, what's left?
The core concern.
The core concern, the exploration of personal trauma and the profound difficulty of living with guilt or flawed decision-making.
I see.
And in that light, Albom often focuses directly on the consequences of human frailty and regret, using highly emotional frameworks. So the devoted fan might be connecting to the moral outcome rather than the literary execution.
So the feeling that McEwan's characters, for all their intelligence, are fundamentally wrestling with these huge, universal human failings.
Exactly. Just framed in a very precise setting.
That's a wonderful synthesis. It shows that the appeal isn't just the prose, but the emotional subject matter hidden inside those polished sentences.
And that leads us to the most fascinating analogy provided. William Trevor, specifically The Children of Dinmouth.
And the source for this one came with a warning label, right?
It did, yeah. The source included the caveat that the two are very different writers, but somehow there is an inexplicable similarity.
So what is that inexplicable similarity, given their styles are so different?
The answer is in the function of precision. Both authors use meticulous detail and clinical observation of a setting, whether it's the English suburbs or a small Irish village. This exactness, this fidelity to the ordinary, makes the breakdown that follows
The moment of violence or betrayal.
even more unsettling. It's the meticulous, almost observational quality of the narrative that sets up this quiet menace. You're watching something unfold in slow motion, knowing the outcome will be disproportionately terrible given the gentle surroundings.
That sense of imminent personal catastrophe.
That is the shared territory between Trevor and McEwan.
Okay, now that you have a substantial reading list, let's turn to the future. Moving on from past works, here's where we analyze his latest. You've read almost all his back catalog. Now we need to look ahead to his 19th novel, What We Can Know. This book marks a pretty unique stylistic shift for him. It offers a new lens on the future, one McEwan himself calls science fiction without the science.
And that phrase is key. It signals that this novel is about moral and literary exploration, not technology or, space opera. It's set in the year 2119, giving him a huge canvas, but the apocalypse he describes is a fundamentally melancholy one.
Tell us about this world of 2119. What exactly was the derangement?
So the world our main character, Tom Metcalf, lives in is post-apocalyptic, but not in a dramatic blockbuster way. The derangement wasn't a single event. It was a slow, cascading failure over time.
Like what?
A period of catastrophes, including nuclear war, pandemics, major economic collapse, and runaway climate change, which together have the global population. And that distinction is crucial. It wasn't a sci-fi action movie. It was a societal slow-burn collapse, which makes the world of 2119 feel distinctly gentle, resigned, and literary.
And the geopolitical map has been completely redrawn because of this.
Unrecognizably so. The U.S., as we know it, is a lawless land, fragmented and run by feuding warlords. The new global superpower, in a brilliant inversion, is Nigeria.
Nigeria. That's the kind of clever, understated world building you expect from him.
And inundated England, where the book starts, is reduced to a series of small, flood-battered island republics.
So who guides us through this new landscape?
Our guide is Tom Metcalf. He's an English academic researching a famous fictional, of course, 21st century poet named Francis Blundy. The plot centers on Tom's adventure to search for a legendary lost poem Blundy read way back in 2014. Our very recent past.
So the search for a piece of literature, a lost poem, becomes the central goal in a world that has otherwise abandoned global ambition. That suggests the literary pursuit itself is a kind of moral anchor.
It is. And the journey is an adventurous search described as having touches of Treasure Island. It gives the novel that external propulsion, while the core conflict remains intellectual and historical.
But the real power of the setting is the way it forces the future to look back at the present and, well, critique us.
Exactly. To Tom Metcalf, the world we are living in right now, with its current abundance and natural diversity, is a barely imaginable time of abundance, natural diversity, and human folly. It forces you, the reader, to see your own era as a historical curiosity.
And McEwan gets a sharp line in there.
He does. He delivers his central sentiment through Metcalf, summarizing our era with the quote, "What brilliant invention and boneheaded greed." It's an evaluation of our current paradox that establishes the moral groundwork McEwan loves to explore.
Speaking of moral groundwork, let's talk about his trademark narrative engineering. One of the things that defines his work is that dramatic shift in perspective, often partway through the story.
That's the classic McEwan move, and he uses it again here. The new novel features a significant twist partway through that fundamentally shifts the reader's perspective. It's a core mechanic of what we could call retrospective morality.
For our listeners who know his techniques, they'll be thinking of Atonement. What is the technical function of the twist in this new book?
The core mechanic is the same as his best work. The shift in perspective forces you to reevaluate every action and assumption you made in part one. McEwan's stated goal is for the reader to be not disoriented, but just to pass through a different mirror turning the page.
And the title, What We Can Know, plays into that.
It's all about that. He hopes this perspective change brings the reader back to that central theme. The twist isn't just for surprise. It's about illustrating the limits of human knowledge and perception, which is really the heart of his entire literary project.
And typically when that mirror shifts, we are suddenly exposed to the darker side of the ordinary, that capacity for malice in unexpected places.
Absolutely. The second half of the book, Post-Twist, delivers surprise, violence, and betrayal, and more evidence of the terrible things that perfectly ordinary people can do.
It's a consistent trademark, isn't it?
It is. He dates all the way back to his unsettling debut, The Cement Garden. He takes the domestic sphere and just shows you how quickly it can become feral.
Now, despite this book tackling nuclear aftermath and climate catastrophe, McEwan insists he is not an iterative novelist, which is a paradox because his books always touch on major world affairs.
Right, think of Saturday and the Iraq invasion,
Yeah.
solar and climate change, or machines like me and AI.
So why does he resist that label so fiercely?
He believes it suggests the novel is subservient to a political tract. When discussing the profound environmental change in what we can know, he states, this isn't really a novel about climate change.
So how does he write about the defining crisis of our time without making it the defining issue? This seems key to understanding his method.
He argues that the only way to write about climate change is not to. He believes the novelist's job is to actually put at the center properly conceived characters and other issues and let the climate change matter simply be there as a given.
An example.
Take solar. The book is about a physicist whose marriage is collapsing, whose ethics are crumbling. The climate crisis is the setting, the backdrop that amplifies his personal failures, but it is not the engine of the story.
I see.
McEwan reasons. No one needs any warning about it. All that matters is your response to it. He uses the global issue as the inescapable crucible for the character's intimate moral choices.
That frames the world building as a function of psychological pressure, not political commentary. Okay, shifting gears again, McEwan is now 77. He started with those unsettling, often shocking works in the 70s and 80s.
And has since become one of the UK's most critically and commercially successful novelists, winning the Booker for Amsterdam back in 1998.
He has definitively settled into the role of the elder statesman.
He's part of that garlanded generation of British writers, alongside Julian Barnes and, of course, the late Martin Amis and Salman Rushdie.
And speaking of his status, the Financial Times famously dubbed him the centrist dad of English fiction. That label sounds a little barbed.
It's a barbed compliment for sure.
Does it refer to his subject matter, his penchant for tackling middle-class professional life, or his stylistic shift away from the darkness of his early work?
I think it speaks primarily to the accessibility and balance of his later works. The centrist dad idea suggests he tackles contentious topics like AI or climate change with a thoughtful, measured, and often highly rational sensibility, avoiding the extremes of political fervor or experimental prose.
He appeals widely.
He does, because he gives sophisticated readers a solid, grounded literary experience built on character and consequence.
Does he ever reflect on his legacy now that he's writing into his late 70s?
He claims not to think about it, noting it's out of my hands, but he plans to keep writing till the cogs start falling off. That said, there is a deep underlying melancholy there about literary permanence.
How so?
He recounted seeing shelves of dusty, absolutely brilliant novels from the 1920s and 30s in a publisher's office, once celebrated, now completely forgotten. It forces us to ask, if literary fame is so fleeting, why continue writing?
That's actually a deeply sobering observation. To spend a career crafting something lauded as brilliant only to see it gather dust a century later.
It certainly puts the temporary nature of our current literary obsessions into stark perspective.
Which brings us directly to the future of fiction itself. If human fame is temporary, what happens when AI enters the market?
That is a real concern for him. McEwan is worried that AI might write novels of no great originality but possibly colossal commercial success.
So, competent but soulless.
The technology has the capacity to flood the zone with competent, structurally sound, yet emotionally soulless fiction.
So, why then is he fundamentally optimistic? Why does he believe the novel is not dead?
This is where we loop back to the title, What We Can Know. McEwan argues that the enduring power of the novel relies on the fundamental difficulty we have in penetrating other minds. We can barely know the minds of the people close to us, let alone people in the past or future.
And the novel's function is?
The novel provides the crucial, unique illusion that they could know. It is the only art form where the author can successfully create that complete immersion and internal intimacy with another consciousness. It's the place where we practice empathy by fully inhabiting another's interior life.
So, what does this all mean for you, the reader who is searching for your next literary fix and preparing for his next release?
Hmm.
We've established that the literary analogs that capture that precise McEwan feeling, the surgical prose, the internal moral dilemma, the quiet menace, are Viet Thanh Nguyen, Hans Fallada.
And maybe the broader moral focus of A.M. Holmes and Mitch Albom and the subtly connected William Trevor.
That gives you a solid bibliography to dig into.
And we know that his latest work, What We Can Know, is not a sci-fi blockbuster, but a literary mystery set in a gentle dystopia post the derangement.
Mhm.
It's a world where the search for a lost poem becomes the central moral anchor.
And where McEwan once again employs his signature narrative twist to force us to examine human folly and the limits of perception.
Right.
The essential ingredient that keeps us reading McEwan and why the novel survives the threat of AI or literary oblivion is the promise of intimacy. It's the illusion of penetrating a mind fully, whether it's a professor in 2119 or an ordinary person capable of terrible things.
And the book itself is a study in that very promise,
Ah.
quiet meditation on what we lost and what we might still recover through literature.
Before we go, we have one final provocative thought for you to mull or explore on your own. McEwan has openly admitted he is dubious about schools studying his books.
I remember this. He recounted trying to help his own son with an essay on one of his novels, only for his son to get a C+ area.
Right.
So, given his central philosophy, that the novel provides the crucial illusion of knowing another mind, and that this illusion is the fundamental source of the novel's power, is it possible that attempting to formally analyze that illusion
Dissecting its mechanics for an essay or grading it in a classroom?
immediately destroys the very magic, this seamless narrative immersion that makes the books powerful in the first place?
Something to think about the next time you finish a book that grabs you completely. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.